What up, everyone? It's your girl Jossie, aka JRenee, back at it again with another icy video. In this weather, I really felt like I needed to bring, you know, the vibes, the color, because this ain't it. Okay, so when I step outside, I want to be a sight for sore eyes, you know what I mean? So I came to y'all with this cute, colorful wow, okay, let's try that again. So I came to y'all with this cute, colorful, what is this called? So yeah, with this cute, colorful puffer jacket, I wanted y'all to see how I made this so y'all can make it yourselves. Leave in the comments if you really like this and if you want to see more things like this, because this is everything. It's giving everything, okay? So I know y'all gonna like this video, so hit that subscribe button because I know you're gonna love this video and love this channel, and smash that like button because that'll just make my day, okay? So without further ado, let's just get into the video. So we're gonna start with our materials. I have about 8 or 9 bandanas in like no specific color, but these were the ones that I wanted. I have my jacket pattern and I have this polyfill batting. Actually, I didn't use actual stuffing, but I used batting. And so here I'm just going to cut up my bandanas. I really only needed 9 for the one that I was gonna do, and it worked out, but you know, use as many or as little as you need to. I did mine in a kind of rainbow pattern, but when I made the jacket, it's not in any specific pattern, color, or order or anything like that. So really, I'm just cutting out these bandanas into like rectangles, not too small and not too big, because I still want that patchwork effect to look like really cool and like really all over the place. And so this is what it came out to be as. And now it is ironing time, 1 by 1, babies. But sometimes I did not do 1 by 1 because it just took too long. Like I had way too many pieces. And so here I'm just lining my colors up in no specific order. I have about 7 or 8 in a row, and they're not, as you can see, they're not in any specific color order. I tried to make them as random as possible because I wanted them to be very colorful, okay? So like it really didn't matter. And so I matched them all up because they were roughly the same size. I just kept going, matched them all up, and I have about 13 or so different piles. And so I'm gonna just take that to my serger and sew them together like real quick and easy. And if you don't have a serger, that is okay. You can use a zigzag stitch on your regular sewing machine, or just use a straight stitch, and we're going to iron them down anyway. So it doesn't really matter. I just use my serger because it's quicker and it's fun and it's just so much easier. Like my life has changed with this overlock serger sewing machine, because I don't know what I would do. I wouldn't even have a whole patchwork thing that I do now because it's just a lot easier, okay? And so of course, we're gonna iron that down. Like everything, always press, always press, always press. And if you haven't done so already, please smash that like button and subscribe to my channel, because I will be having new content every week with new DIYs and new upcycles for you guys. We are back with our rows of sewed down pieces, and next we're going to put them in no specific order. We're just trying to keep all the colors from being next to each other. So you see those hot pink ones, they're too close together because they're right next to each other. So we're gonna just move them and place them where all the colors are not next to each other, to be as random as possible, because we want this like to be really colorful. And so to make everything even, I'm just cutting down a straight line, so when I sew it together, it's a lot easier to keep the pieces together and to make those straight lines, and then put them together and take them back to our serger and back to our sewing machine and sew those down again. Here I'm pinning them down to help keep the pieces together, but you don't have to. You can really just take them to the sewing machine and do what you want, and then keep that process going. Disclaimer, I started this puffer jacket about 2.5 years ago, back in like 2021, but I never finished it because it kept giving me a hard time. I just was not feeling it at all, and so I stopped it. It gave me too much trouble. But I finally wanted to finish it because it's literally snow outside and I have the time now, okay? I have the time to put it together and make it actually look like something. And I'm glad I did, because I love this puffer now. Like, I'm going to start wearing this everywhere, okay? And again, we're back with the ironing. Make sure everything is laying flat as you go. You don't want to have like puckers and everything just looking weird when you're finished. And so I have my 2 sheets of bandana squares, my patchwork and whatever. And so now I'm going to take out my pattern and start placing where I want the pattern to be. And before I do that, I did have my zipper. And I wanted to measure where my zipper was going to be. I didn't actually know what I was going to put it. Like I said, I did this 2 years ago prematurely. I was not ready for a project like this because I didn't know what I was doing. But it's okay because we figured it out. So I cut the pattern short. I got this pattern from probably a jacket that I had before. I really just be making my patterns from all the clothes that I had before. And if y'all want a video on how I make my patterns from other clothes, just let me know in the comments below because I can definitely show y'all how I do that. And so till this day, I don't know why I added certain seam allowance in some places and then I left it open in other places, but that's beside the point. If you have a pattern, use your pattern and it'll just be a lot better. And so again, I'm just marking some seam allowance at the armholes and on the side seams because I guess I didn't account for them before. Now for the sleeve, I didn't have enough for that one sleeve, so I had to, you know, of course, patchwork some stuff together. And I needed 2 sleeves, of course, so you can't just have one. You gotta have 2 sleeves. It's a puffer jacket. And so I'm gonna just do that and take it to my sewing machine and make them connect. So then I'll have enough to make 2 sleeves and then cut it out as normal. I didn't add any extra seam allowance because like I said, I can't tell you what I was doing with this project 2 years ago, but it is now time for the batting. So I roll out my batting and I think I used like 2, maybe 3 layers of this for our jacket, and I'm pinning them down exactly where I placed them on the bandanas patchwork part. And so I'm gonna cut it out with some scissors. I didn't use my rotary cutter. I actually didn't like that rotary cutter at the time, so I used my scissors for this anyway, and it just worked out better. I think I used like 2 or 3 layers for each of the panels, the front panel, the back panel, and the sleeves as well. Now that we have that all cut out, I'm going to put together my pieces with my batting. So my front side pieces, I'm going to pin them to the batting so I know how they go. I'm just going to sew them together eventually. But before we do that, we have to make those lines where, you know, the puffer actually puffs, if that makes sense. So I think here I measured out 2 inches each, but then I was like, that's too many lines. And so eventually I crossed out those extra lines and did 4 inches between each of the sewing lines, and that was like an even number that I could figure out. And so I just carried that on the same measurements with the back piece and the side pieces with the sleeve as well, and making sure they all matched up so they could be one unison piece of everything just being sewn together. And then I'm going to take those to my sewing machine and sew down on the lines we just drew over top of the batting. And I find this way was kind of a lot easier than stuffing it, but I feel like when you stuff it can be good as well because you don't have to worry about attaching the lining at the end because it's already attached when you're doing the stuffing. But it's really up to you. I tried this version and I'll probably try the stuffing next time if I do this again. So next we're going to match up the shoulder seams with the front side panels and the back panel. We're going to match up the side seams, and then we're going to match up the sleeve as well. I measured out where the middle was and then made sure that it matched up with the seams at the shoulder seam, if that makes sense. And sometimes, like I said, I actually don't recall how I did this because now that I know how to do it properly, I didn't do it right that time. But you know the deal. We're going to take this back to our sewing machine and sew down that other sleeve as well. And just do the best you can. This was not the right machine for this project as well. So I was struggling a lot here, as you can tell. Well, you might not be able to tell, but I could tell. And then I'm gonna attach the sleeve together with the body of the rest of the jacket. I'm gonna pin those two together and then sew that down as well. So taking it from the underarm seam all the way down to the cuff, and then from that underarm I'm gonna go all the way down the side of the jacket as well, and then sew those together on both sides, and then we're gonna have like the outer layer of our jacket. And now you can see it's coming together looking like a little puffer, and we love it here. So moving on, it's time for the collar. So I'm measuring out how long to make the collar with my measuring tape along the neckline, and it was about like 22 inches if I'm not mistaken, something like that. Yeah, and so I'm just gonna take my scrap fabric that I have from the bandanas that I just cut out from the pattern pieces and patch them together again just for the collar, and then stuff that as well. So I think I measured out about 4 inches total width, and then like 22 or 23 inches just for extra seam allowance on the rest of it. And I made 2 of these so then I could sew them together. I didn't think folding them over was gonna be high enough for a collar like that, so I took 2, sewed them together, and then cut out the batting piece and then sew that all together, and then we're gonna attach it to the rest of the body of the jacket. Now I'm going to use that same piece and trace it out on another scrap piece, and now I have 2 parts to my collar that I can then sew together and then add the batting. I just took this little piece of the batting and cut it off the same measurement of my collar, and then I used my serger and stuffed the batting into the collar and then sewed it down on that open edge, so then everything will be nice and tight up in there. And that's how it looks. And so now it's time to add the collar to the rest of the jacket. And so I'm gonna take the collar and start at the edge. Usually I start in the middle so then I can have like an even amount around the whole thing, but it was like the perfect length. So I started from one edge, pinned it around, and then that's how it's gonna look on the outside. I'm gonna take that of course to my sewing machine and sew that down with a straight stitch. This seam kind of gave me some trouble, but because all of the batting was in the way, but I figured it out and we did it. Now it's time for the lining. I cut out this silky type stretchy piece of fabric that I had and cut out the same pattern pieces that I did with the rest of the jacket, and then sewed that together the same way I did the rest of the jacket. Now I'm putting the lining on just like another jacket, if that makes sense. I'm putting it on like a jacket, so then it will line the inside of this puffer part, and so you won't see any of the batting. And so I'm gonna pin down this collar. I'm gonna do like a 1/4 inch fold on the collar and then pin that down, and then when we sew it, it's just gonna be like a top stitch, and it'll encase all of the batting and you won't see it anymore. That was like the part where if I were to do the lining first and then stuff it, that would probably be easier, so I wouldn't have to do this part of it. But it's okay because we figured it out, and we just pinned it all the way down and all the way around the collar, and then sew that in place so everything is nice and neat, and the inside will be just as pretty as the outside. And what I like about having the lining separate from the outside is that you don't have to feel like those lines. Not that you would feel them, but it's like just a clean slate on the inside of the jacket instead of having the lines from the outside go into the jacket. And I feel like it's just more professional that way, but to each their own. Taking it to my sewing machine was a lot because at this point everything is really bulky. The stuffing and stuff is in the way, but we're going to take our time with this one because we're sewing over a lot of layers. But it wasn't too bad, just making sure that the lining does have a fold and so you don't see the raw edge. And there was some excess of the lining on like the front of the jacket, so I'm gonna just take it to my serger and do it that way, even though that probably wasn't the best method because I also had to add in a zipper later. But it came out okay. This is me now 2 years later after I couldn't finish the jacket the first time. I had to figure out the lining situation. But now it's a clean finish on the front. And now instead of adding in cuffs, I'm just going to use the same lining and pull it out because it's like stretchy. And so I pulled it out from the inside of the sleeves and used that as the cuff because I didn't feel like adding a whole nother thing to this jacket because it was already getting on my nerves. Then I took the arm off the sewing machine so I would have space enough to do a cuff just like this, and so the inside lining is now on the outside, and that's basically the cuff. And it actually, I don't mind it. It actually doesn't look that bad. And so for the bottom half, we're gonna use a sweatshirt waistband to fulfill like the bottom half of the jacket. So I needed it to finish it somehow, and I had some red left over from when I do my patchwork sweatshirts and things like that. Check out my website JReneeDesigns.co if you want to see more or buy some more patchwork stuff. I'm gonna make this bottom part even with my serger. I told you my serger is like my baby, like I use her for everything. And then pin the waistband from the sweatshirt to the jacket before I put on the zipper. And so that's what you see me doing here. I made sure that the waistband was slightly smaller than the actual jacket width so that it stretches a little and it has like a little pull to it, because it'll stretch eventually. And so I'm gonna just sew that down with a straight stitch at first, and then I probably took it to my serger, and then now I'm doing a top stitch, making sure the underneath excess is facing up and not on the actual waistband. So, and it's a clean finish, something like that, which looks really good. And so now it is zipper time. Mind you, if you remember, I had a green zipper before. I don't know what happened to that green zipper from 2 years ago, but I found another zipper. It's a separating zipper, and it's actually pretty like heavy duty one. Something I probably got from Joann's. It's like 24-ish inches, and I cut off a little bit of the top because it was just too much excess that I didn't need, and then use my lighter to make sure the ends don't fray, and then fold it over the excess right over top where the collar ends, and then pinned the whole zipper to the front of the jacket. And then as it was closed, I made sure that the bottoms matched up so that it could be even all the way down the front zipper, and the jacket would line up perfectly. Changing to my zipper foot, I am taking my time with this because at this point this jacket is really bulky, and I didn't want it to mess up. I didn't want to sew over the zipper teeth because these zipper teeth are actually metal and it can mess up my machine. And then once I do that zipper, I turn it over and do a top stitch just so that the zipper is out of the way when I try to close up my jacket. And so eventually it's all done now. This is how it looks, and it was so cute. Like I would love this like in the dull like life of the snow. I'm like this colorful person, and I just love it. Like it's everything, actually. I'm glad it really came out the way I needed it to. I'm mad I didn't put any pockets in it, but I wasn't ready for that, like I said, because the way this jacket gave me a hard time, it did not deserve pockets, okay? But look at this. Look at these colors. Look at the feel. Like it was actually really warm. Like it's cold outside right now, but it was keeping me warm, okay? Like it was everything. So thank y'all for watching, and I hope to see y'all in the next video. Bye.